So my name's Lydia. I work at Severn Trent Water as the Bioresources Asset Manager, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell, really. The Ironman is 2.4 mile swim, 112 miles on the bike, and a marathon to finish. And I've been trying to do that for the past few years.
My name's Lauren Ward and I co-run Passion Fit alongside my husband Tom Ward, and I also, as part of that, look after and oversee our sponsored team athletes, and Lydia is one of those.
For me, going out on a bike, that's what I do. That's what I've done for God knows how long. Any time I look back, I've always just gone out on a bike, and that's just been my escape for absolutely anything. So that would be a large part to take away. You've got no limits. There is absolutely nothing stopping you from going as far as you want to go on a bike, and I would have never envisaged that last year in September that I'd be racing. Like, that's never what I planned to do. Well, it had always been cool to have done, but when I first started going out cycling, it was never the intention to see what I could do with it. It was just to go out and enjoy it, and how that enjoyment is like manifested over time has taken me on so many adventures. Looking back now, I had no idea how I was training, so I was kind of just going out on the bike with a few people at the weekend and just cycling a bit. There was absolutely no structure to it. I'd go to the pool, I'd swim for a bit. I should have found out a lot more about how to structure my training, but yeah. So my goals, I thought I was going to go there and I thought I was going to podium, so I was delusional and probably quite arrogant. Got there and it was a total disaster, and I was undertrained and overconfident, and that was just the combination that wasn't brilliant. So yeah, it knocked me a lot, so I kind of just stopped really, and then few house moves later and just never really got back into the routine to do it, which is why I then got to a point I was like, I want to make sure I do this again, because I used to love training and doing all of that. I felt like time was going by and it was just kind of blurring. So within that sort of time frame, like a few years ago, you almost repress it, never really getting much out of myself. And you kind of think, actually, in the longer run, what are you going to look back on and remember? And there was nothing that happened in that period of time that I can think, oh, do you know, that was ace. There wasn't that sort of sense of purpose that I was looking for every single day. I started training properly 2.5 years ago when I first found my coach at Passion Fit. The only glass ceilings you set are on yourself. There are always going to be limitations. So for some people, like physiologically, they aren't going to be able to be on the podium. And I'm fortunate that I seem to have this, physiologically I don't seem to have that many limitations. Like, I'm able to just keep going, I'm able to keep training, keep adapting with the load. After camp, had a really, really cracking block. We went to Lanzarote for a few weeks and then got back in April time. Started to be quite unwell. My lack of awareness about how ill I was came into play because I was just hell-bent on training to try and get a world slot. I found that I was having difficulty breathing down both left and right hand side of my rib cage, essentially. Went and got it checked out, and possibly the GP said it could have been like maybe a slight chest infection. I could have torn a muscle, but the pain kept transferring across both sides. So I carried on training because I thought I'd put myself under a lot of pressure to do as well as I could. My goal for last year was to qualify for the 70.3 World Championships. And so I thought I'd convinced myself that the pain I was feeling was totally in my head. This suddenly just dissipated overnight. So this happened about 3 times. So it would get worse and worse and worse. Wake up the next day and it would be fine. But the 3rd time I decided that was probably the point where I had to go and get it sorted properly. It wasn't in my head, and it turned out I had blood clots in my lungs. So I'd had a series of pulmonary embolisms. So that then stopped us from racing Ironman Vichy that year, and I had to quickly reassess my goals. I was put on blood thinners, so it was then questionable about the safety and the risk reward of me going out and riding my bike. So at one point I was talking to another doctor around was it sensible to even go and do that? Would I be able to race long term again? If it's one of those things that happened, it's unfortunate, but I learned so much from it that it is what it is, and it kind of pales in comparison to what a lot of other people struggle with medically on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah.
But I have to say, actually, if anything, she's probably exceeded those high expectations, probably becoming an even stronger athlete than even we envisaged at the start. We did quite early on realised that actually she probably had quite a lot of potential.
How well can you look to prepare and develop, and not just as an athlete from a training and sort of the metrics point of view, but more of like as a person with how I approach the training, my sort of attitude and ethos towards sort of everyday life, you could say. And that's also been the other game changer, is that sort of performance and accomplishment side of things. Is during lockdown I had to sit down and reflect and was like, right, during this time, what does accomplishment look like to me, to try and frame it in the right way. So I could think, right, if I can look back on this time, if I look back from, or you could even say this moment in time now over the last 6 months, can I look back and think I did things in the right way? Did I do things the right way? Did I behave in the right way? And how did I make the most of that time, even though, yeah, it didn't feel like it was great at points, but I still feel like I've got so much out of it and the choices that I made within that. You're always looking for something that's going to provide you with that sense of fulfillment or accomplishment. And through doing an Ironman, the actual race is kind of the icing on the cake. But for me, it's the challenge that you face every day and understanding the process, how you can put your training together, learn about yourself and challenge yourself that stimulates me. Anyone going into an Ironman, you never know whether you will or you won't finish.